Hi and welcome back to Box to Lives. I wanted to do something a little bit different for you today because I've got a game, but I'm also going to show you a book. This is a book by Philip Sabin. In this book he talks about the techniques that he uses to develop and design games, okay, particularly war games that simulate war. In this book there are some counter sheets, alright, but they're obviously only paper, okay, but you can. The idea is that, they're double-sided. You can't use and cut these out, but the idea is that you photocopy them. You can either print them out or on card, or anyway. But there's templates for all the games and the tokens involved. And there's a section in here on Angel 5.1, which Victory Point Games has published. So there's 8 war games in this book. And there's a little advertisement here on the back of the scenario booklet that VPG have published. One of the other things that the Victory Point games do is they'll give you the rating. How solitaire compatible is this game? It's a World War II aerial combat game, fighters versus bombers. And there's some interesting mechanisms deployed. And what's great about having the accompanying book is that Philip Sabin will talk to you and explain the design decisions that went into the game. In the book here it tells you how to set up a scenario, and you set the scenario up randomly, and this is where you've got the bombers and a number of different fighters that each side has, okay, but what you have with Victory Point Games is a scenario booklet, and it's got a whole number of different scenarios, so you can just kind of set up one of these. These are real battles. So it talks about here the attacks at Sedan on May 10th, 1940. German forces attacked into Belgium and France. Okay, so we've got the RAF sent a mix of ferry battles and Bristol Blenheims to attack the German forces and bridges over the Meuse. And it tells you what bombers and escorts, what the interceptors are. So these are the guys trying to take down the bombers. It tells you where to put the sun. Alright, and then any special rules that come along, and a victory condition. Okay, so the scenario booklet's great. That's something that you can use to kind of give you that extra thematic engagement and get you set up a little bit more quickly. Let me start by setting up the map and showing you. We've got ABC. Okay, so here's your countryside looking down, remember, or looking down across the ocean. ABC. We're going to put it from left to right, so our bombers are flying from left to right. Okay, here's our bombers starting here. But these guys are going to progress this way. And what happens is, as soon as you get to this point where you've moved off the middle one and onto the front one, you move. Okay, and these guys, they keep going forward. So the idea is that you've got an infinite amount of airspace for these bombers to keep flying into. Okay, they can't turn around and go backwards. The other thing I wanted to show you quickly was the wonderful perspective that these aircraft give you. Remember I told you that we're looking down from above. So what perspective is telling us? We've got multiple tokens. 4 different sizes, 4 different altitudes. Okay, so imagine we're looking down from above. This one's closer. It's bigger as it gets closer, smaller as it gets further away. Alright, so these ones are at the lowest altitude near the ground. Then we get higher and higher. So each unit, each squadron of planes, they have a name. So this is easy. They're in alphabetical order. So what that means is that when you're taking actions, you're always going in alphabetical order. Alright, so there's no question about which unit acts first or anything like that. The other thing is that these are kind of non-specific aircraft. Let me tell you what Philip Sabin said. Each unit represents between 4 and 12 aircraft. Some or all of one-size fighters might be designated as German heavy fighters, such as the Me-110. And really this is the only distinction between aircraft types, apart from the fact we've got some bombers. And we designate a unit as heavy by using 2 tokens on top of each other. Heavy fighters are badly outclassed in fighter combat, and their only compensating game benefit is against heavy bombers, but they may still be used to intercept or escort medium bombers if desired. The wide range in representational ratios reflects differences in the number of aircraft present in the combat and the tightness of their formations. Asymmetries between the representational ratios on the 2 sides are assumed to be offset by differences in pilot quality and by the greater difficulty that larger forces had in distinguishing friends from foes. Meanwhile, our aircraft also have a direction, and it's one of 6 directions, okay, depending on which side of the hex they're facing. As it goes, I'm going to set up a scenario that Philip describes in his book. We've got 2 players who are trying to simulate a German interception of a full combat wing of around 54 USAF B-17 heavy bombers. So these are Allied bombers. The Americans are given just 1 squadron of around 16 P-47 fighters to guard this part of the bomber stream. But in view of their small numbers, what we're going to do is have each unit represent 4 individual aircraft. We've got Abel, Baker, Charlie and Dog. Now, in saving this book, these bombers, they all start at level 2, medium level, apart from 1 which is elevated to a higher level. But in Victory Point Games rules, they've simplified and said everything stays at medium altitude. The Allied player is then going to deploy his planes in their starting formation. Put Abel here, Baker here, and then we've got Charlie and Dog squadrons. They're a little bit behind, kind of playing catch up. We're also going to place our sun marker, alright, whether we're flying into the sun or away from the sun is significant. This plane facing the same direction as the sun arrow here is facing down sun. This one is facing up sun. What you do is you roll a 6-sided die. This is a 1. This is a 2. A 3 is this way and a 4 is this way. 5 and 6 will give you wrong directions, right? You can never be facing in or behind the sun. So a 3 would give us this direction. The sun in this direction suggests that our bombers are flying home from their target in a northwesterly direction. Now what the Allied players decided to do with these is move them down to medium altitude. They've come down to the same level as the bombers, and normally they would also start with an airspeed of 2, but what they can do is they can weave. Okay, if you want to, you could start the planes off weaving and increase their airspeed to 3. The downside to that is that then, because they're weaving, they're not necessarily facing forwards. Well, this time you roll another die, and on a roll of 1 to 2 they go 60 degrees to the left. 3 or 4 they're facing straight forward. 5 or 6 and they're facing 60 degrees to the right. Now we've deployed our escort, we need to do the interceptor deployment. And again, they're going to have some randomization as to which side of the board they'll deploy from. Right, we rolled a 4, so they're coming in at this side, down sun. Now the Germans, they're given, it says, 2 depleted Gruppen of Me-110 destroyers, accompanied by 3 fuller strength squadrons of Me-109s and FW-190s, mounting in all to over 50 aircraft. But to reflect their relatively larger numbers and their less experienced pilots, they're represented by just 5 interceptor units. Okay, let's go grab these. Bertha. Okay, that's everyone. Now the interceptors have a starting energy, and energy is airspeed plus altitude. So again, we roll a die. On a 1, the interceptors have a starting energy of 4. To a 3, it's 5. 4 or 5 is 6, and on a 6 they have a starting energy of 7. We rolled a 2, so they're going to have a starting energy of 5. What's important is that energy of 5 is an average. So if you wanted to use an starting energy of 4 instead of 5, that means one of your other squadrons could start at energy level 6. Alright, so you're averaging out to 5. So you can sacrifice energy on one squadron to give it to another squadron. Units Alpha and Beta are deployed with an airspeed of 3 and at level 2, right? That's their energy 5. You'll notice these are heavy bombers. They're 2 tokens stacked together with the correct airspeed faced up. These represent the ME-110s, ready to curve in and exploit their ability to attack from directly behind without being as badly affected by the bomber's defensive ability. Units Caesar and Dora, they're placed much further ahead. These represent the ME-109s, hoping to swing round for an initial head-on attack. And we've deployed them at level 2 again, but this time at only airspeed 2. So that gives us 2 energy spare. Now this has allowed us to place unit Emile with 7 energy. So at level 4 with an airspeed of 3. This represents the FW-190 in a position both to deter the P-47 high cover from dropping down on the vulnerable ME-110s, and also perhaps to dive down out of the sun against the B-17s themselves. Now we're ready to go. We start with the bomber phase. All we do is we move the bombers 2 hexes forward. And there's a chance that they might be moving into the same hex as some interceptors, in which case they're going to get fired upon, but no, we're just starting out. Now we activate the escorts, and we activate them in alphabetical order, so Alpha, Baker, Charlie, Dog, and normally we're playing for 18 turns, 6 map rotations, okay, before we reach the end of the game, unless the scenario says otherwise. And our job as the escort is to ensure that these bombers get through to their target and home safely by engaging the enemy interceptors and keeping them away from our bombers. Starting with Abel then, what he'd like to do is to dive, accelerate and take a position ahead of the bombers. So we'll replace Abel medium with a low altitude one. Now we've got to remember to pick the right airspeed. Now initially the airspeed doesn't change, so we'll just replace him with an airspeed 3 with an airspeed 3. But he has gone down one level to low altitude, right? He's got further away from us. And we want to move him, so we've dived and we're moving. The sequence is always do your altitude change if you want to, then move, and then we adjust our airspeed. Okay, so we've got an airspeed of 3. We've dived down, now we move. And we've got an airspeed of 3, so we move 3 hexes. Nice and easy, right? 1, 2, 3. So how do we do this airspeed adjustment? Well, again, we're going to roll another die. But this time, all we need is a value greater than 0. Now, you can choose to apply thrust or not, and you can choose to apply any value from 0, 1, 2, or 3. The other way to look at it is if you're diving, you have to roll a die plus thrust, 0, 1, 2, or 3, greater than your current airspeed. Okay, so even if I rolled a 1 with a thrust of 3, I'm always going to roll a 4, which was greater than my 3. So if we want to make sure that we increase our speed, then we maximise our thrust. So we say let's apply a modifier of plus 3, minus our airspeed, minus 3. That's a modifier of 0 on the die roll. Anything greater than 0 is going to be an increase in speed. So it doesn't matter what we roll. Alright? So you can save yourself a little time. If you've got an airspeed of 3, you will always know that you can increase your airspeed. So yeah, we've increased our airspeed to 4. Now let's look at Baker. He's facing the wrong way. First off, he's going to maintain altitude. He's got a speed of 3, so he's going to move 1 space forward and turn left 60 degrees. Now the number of turns we can make, so we're going to move into this one with our second move. We might want to turn this way. Okay, now with an airspeed of 3 you can do that. You can move 1 hex and then turn. With an airspeed of 4, once you've done a turn, you can't then turn on the next hex. Now with an airspeed of 5, you have to do 2 straight before you can turn. So the slower you're going, the tighter your turns. 1, turn, 1, turn. Now we're facing back towards those bombers. And with our third movement we go straight forward. We don't want to drop altitude, so let's put maximum thrust on. We'll put thrust 3. Now we're minus 2 because of the 2 turns, we're down to 1. So if we roll a 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. It's less than 3. Okay, so we would drop airspeed. 2, we would maintain our airspeed. 3 or more, we're not going to speed up because we didn't dive. In order to speed up, we need to get an extra 7, right? We need a 10 on this modified die result. So we got 1, the highest we can get is 7. 1 plus 6 is 7. That's only 4 higher, it needs to be 7 higher. Alright, so we're not going to speed up, but the worst case is that we roll a 1 and we have to slow down. Alright, so we're going to have to roll. We want anything higher than a 1. Yeah, we got a 5, we're fine. Let's look at Charlie then, Unit C. He's well positioned to dive and swoop in behind these M110s as they come forward, right? What you've got to do is imagine where these guys are going to be. They're coming forward, I'm going to swoop in behind them. That's going to expose his flank to this FW190. So Charlie's going to dive. Stay at speed 3, remember. We've dropped down to medium altitude. So we're going to move, we're going to turn left, we're going to move, we're going to turn right. That's 2 turns. And then with our third move, we're going in here. What that means is this aircraft here, he can't move in behind me. The only option he's got if he wants to take me on is head on, which is not a very attractive position to be in. You want to always come up the rear of these guys, otherwise you've got an exchange of fire. So did we gain airspeed? We got a net modifier of -2. That's 3 for our engine. -2 for the turns takes us down to 1. So we need a roll of 2 or more. And this is where a little dice comes in handy, because when you're rolling them, you know you're not knocking any of these tokens about. We rolled a 1, that's not good enough, so we're going to maintain our airspeed of 3. So round 3 starts then, and things are looking a little bit dodgy over here for the German Anton squadron. The P-47s are gaining rapidly from behind on the ME-110s. So we're going to have Anton dive and do 2 hard rights to try and escape the attack. He's speed 2, so he can do those turns, right? If it was speed 3, because he's a heavy, he'd have to do that extra 1 step before he could turn. So the modifier, remember, so give it a 3, 2 turns is a 1. Even with a roll of a 1, we're going to equal 2, so that's an auto accelerate to speed 3. Berta with a speed of 4 is going to do. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're going to just keep on those bombers, and we'll do a little left turn at the end here. So now it's the airspeed check. So it's 3 minus 1, so that's 2. We need a 2 or more to maintain our airspeed. Remember, it's 2 dice. Right, we got the 2. Just manage to maintain our airspeed. Now looking over here to Cesar and Dora, they're going to be vulnerable, particularly Cesar. Yeah, 1, 2 and a right turn. Yeah, but that's okay. Let's take 1 forward, turn, and then go straight forward. We're going to face these guys head on. And that's 1 turn though, so that's 3 minus 1 turn is 2. Yeah, 2 equals 2, we're not going to get 7, right? So yeah, we're not going to accelerate. But then with Dora, we're going to climb to level 3. So his airspeed immediately drops to 2. But because Unit A here is 2 levels down, he's going to need more than 1 turn to get up and at Dora. So off he goes, 1, 2, straight forward. And finally we've got the FW190s. Now remember, these are going to move forward. 1, 2, 1, 2. So this is going to be out of range, right? So we've got to move forward. Likewise, Charlie, who's sitting on half a hex here, has to move forward. And with a speed of 4, we're going to move forward 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and do a left turn. Now ideally we want to throttle back, right? We don't want to overrun these. So we've got throttle of, say, 0, right? -1 turn is -1. a roll of 5 will maintain his speed at 4 or lower, and I decelerate. So he goes down to speed 3. So here we stand, the bombers are going forward, 1, 2, 1, 2. And now we're going to see some action, I think. And that's going to be over here at the top right. So we've got Unit A. Able is going to gain height. So he drops from speed 4 to speed 3. Now the thing is here, with the movement of 3, we're going to go 1, 2, and then scoot on by. But what you can do is throttle back. Now the rule is, it's called the tally-ho, okay? The rule is, if you're in your penultimate, your second to last hex, you can stop to engage an enemy. Firing comes after we adjust our airspeed. Alright, so we've got a throttle of 0, we've climbed. So we need to match this, okay? So we need a 3. We need a 3 on the die to not lose airspeed. Alright, we're good. We're okay. We stay. If we'd have lost airspeed, that left us in pretty poor shape for the next action. Now we've got our head on fire, okay? And both units are going to fire simultaneously. So we would roll a die. And then we'd apply some modifiers. And there's a whole list of modifiers in the rules that you've got to go through. But you'll get to know them. If we get a modified result of 5 or less, then you've missed. If the side gets a modified result of 6 or 7, then the enemy takes a hit. A modified result of 8 or more, the enemy takes 2 hits. So that means we get a 6 on the die roll to actually hit each other. Okay? We roll, we get a 1. These two are just going to fly past each other. The only other thing we have to do is mark these as fired. Charlie unit is determined to catch and engage these ME-110s. So we're going to dive down to level 1. He's going to have to move 2 hexes and then turn right. Remember, he's speed 4, so he has to move 2 before he can turn. Then he could throttle back, tally-ho, and engage. And we had 1 turn, didn't we? So 0, -1, that's -1. We'll need a roll of 4 or higher to accelerate. No, we got a 3, so we didn't quite make it. That's okay. So again, I'll look at my modifiers. We're not head on, so they don't fire back. +2 if firing on bombers, no. +1 for bombers, +1 for fighters firing on the same heading. +1 for fighters that are firing on fighters whose heading is within 60 degrees. He's within 60. And that are exposed to attack either a heavy fighter or have a fired marker. Okay, so he hasn't fired, but he is a heavy, so we get a +1 modifier. And that's it. So we're looking for a 5 to get 1 hit. I roll. Right, I got a 4. Let's say I got a 6. Okay, or a 5. Let's say we got a hit. And what does that do? Well, they get marked as spent. They've taken a hit. One of their planes has gone down. Remember, these are only small squadrons, but basically the unit aborts. They've lost morale. Now this guy can't do anything other than run and leave the arena. The only thing to add here is if you do roll a 6 when you're firing, that means you're out of ammunition, and that means he's spent as well. So that would make him abort. Okay, he's done all he can to help the mission. Well, I think we'll finish it there because the film's going on a little long. But before I do, let me leave you with a few final thoughts from Philip Sabin. The game illustrates well the inherently three-dimensional character of fighter tactics, with no fewer than 13 of the 22 fighter moves in the contest so far involving significant climbs or dives, rather than mere level flight. I'm especially pleased to have found a simple way of capturing such dive and zoom tactics within the constraints of a two-dimensional medium. Another aspect that the simulation brings out is the rapid loss of energy associated with tangled dogfighting and the consequent tendency of fighters to drift downwards and to fall behind the inexorably advancing bombers. Overall, Angels 1.5 fills a crucial gap in the grand technical modelling of aerial warfare and casts light on a dimension that is not well covered either by computer simulations or by other manual games.